Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, presented by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Steven, and I am the host, as always, coming to you live on a Saturday morning. Hopefully, you guys are having a good time, having some coffee, whatever the case may be. We appreciate you tuning in on this Saturday morning. So, Tyler is here, as always. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
I'm solid. I don't remember the last time I was this whelmed for a primetime matchup for the Chargers, but it just feels like a bye week where you could also lose or win. And, it'll be a game. And as long as the Chargers win it, I'll be happy. But I'm a little flat. I just feel like going into this game, it's just kind of, let's just get it over with and see what happens after this game.
Yeah, it's been a little flat on social media, on everything like that throughout the last couple of weeks. So the Chargers desperately need a get right game. We'll see if that happens tomorrow night. Specifically, the offense I think needs to have a consistent 4-quarter game to carry in some momentum going forward throughout the next few weeks. So we'll have our final wrap up coverage of this game. We didn't do our usual pregame show this week. We obviously did a lot of Chargers Bears talk on the Chargers channel with Brett Coleman and EJ Snyder. So if you missed that, please go check it out. And then we were joined by Arjun for our Thursday show to do kind of a trade preview of sorts for this upcoming trade deadline that's happening on Tuesday. And obviously the Chargers and where they kind of stand it's been the big debate of buying and selling. And so we wanted to give kind of all our viewpoints and what we think is potentially going to happen this week. So hopefully you missed that one. Tyler, I don't know if you had any other final thoughts about like trade stuff, but there is something that I wanted to bring up, but I'll let you go there first if you want.
Does he play for the Bills?
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought about tweeting it out, and then you tweeted out right about the same time. And so we're on the same page there. I am all on board for the Chargers taking now we'll see. I don't know what the Bills are asking for. He's young, rookie contract, former first rounder. So I understand why it'd be a bit more pricey, but I'm all for the Chargers going and getting corner KY Elam from the Bills. I understand that there's an aspect of the Bills not wanting to trade to an AFC team, but we did just see an AFC West team trade someone to the Bills in Von Miller. Or no, that was a free agent thing, right?
That was a free agent thing. Yep.
Never mind. Ignore that. Point is, I think that it's a good move for the Chargers as long as, heck, I don't even really care what the cost is because I can't imagine it would be a whole lot. Sure. Is he not playing for the Bills? The Bills who lost one of their corners already. Is that problematic? Yeah. Maybe. Sure. But I'm always a fan of finding what was supposed to be a really good player coming out of the draft, a talented player, especially at a position of need. And kind of it's a low risk, high reward sort of move. It doesn't work out. It's still a rookie contract, but you have so many years of control with this player if you get him now. And sort of like Terrace Marshall, but I think even more so, you have more years under your control. And then look, next year, I don't know what the corner room is. Michael Davis is gone. Yeah. Obviously, J.C. Jackson is gone. Dean Leonard is, who knows what they feel about Dean Leonard and Jaw Taylor as future pieces. But I really do feel like those guys are depth and special teams more than starters at this point. We'll see with Jaw. And then Asante Samuel Jr. is going to be on the team, but he's never really felt like their CB1. And he's currently on pace to allow 1,400 yards this season, which is a lot. So the Chargers need to do something and reload it at this position in some way. And if this, you trade I don't know, let's say a fifth. I don't know what he's going to cost, a fourth. And you don't have to take a guy now in the third round of next year's draft, for example, because you have someone who's very talented in your building. You've got a good look at him. Go for it. I'm all for this one. Whether they do it, I don't know. I don't know if they do because they've been sort of big on let us have our chemistry and let us have our rotation. Yeah. But I, as a fan of the team, don't see any issue with this trade.
No, I don't either. And we on Thursday talked about like the idea of adding a depth cornerback. Like I think we could justify them adding a new starter, but like you mentioned, this team they want to have that consistency with the starting trio. Communication has been an issue, to say the least, over the first few weeks post JC Jackson trade. So I think that if they're going to be active for trading a potential cornerback, it's going to be somebody who's like a cornerback 4 or 5 right now. And, him and Dean Leonard share some similarities in terms of characteristics, but at that point you would have Michael Davis, KY Elam, and Dean Leonard as kind of your three strictly outside corners, and then you have Asante, who theoretically has some flexibility, and then obviously Jasir Taylor and Ising Bassi. Not the greatest room ever, right? But it's a room that is ripe for this kind of trade. And we heard through the grapevine that this Chargers front office was poking around the Chase Claypool situation a few weeks ago before he was ultimately traded to the Miami Dolphins. And one of the reasons was that not necessarily needing like a starter, but having some, long-term uncertainty at the position. You take a chance on a guy who's a former first-round pick, and you bring him into your room and you see what happens. Probably doesn't help for this year, but like you mentioned, next year you have just a chance at somebody becoming a legitimate starter. This is a cornerback room, like you mentioned, that's very, very uncertain for the future. They also don't have an avenue to like signing a legitimately top tier free agent cornerback because they will have no cash next year. So to me, it just makes sense. This is a team that doesn't have cash. It's a team that needs some long-term solutions at cornerback. And so for me, I think you make that trade. Going back to the draft, that was obviously the draft where the Chargers took Zion Johnson, but there was a ton of buzz leading up to that weekend that the Chargers were interested in one of the cornerbacks of the class. I had heard, obviously, as I tweeted out, that they were interested in Kyler Gordon if he had fell to the second round. They were interested in, he was never going to fall to them, right? But they loved, oh my gosh, Derek Stingley.
Oh,
no,
Stingley.
I'd heard that they loved Derek Stingley after his pro day. They were very active in the cornerback market, and obviously ended up drafting two of them late on day 3. So I wouldn't be shocked if they had some really positive pre-draft notes on KY Elam. Daniel Jeremiah mocked him to the Chargers twice leading up to the draft. So did Todd McShay. So there was some common connections going on there. And like I just said, they were doing a ton of homework on that cornerback class. So to me, it just checks a lot of boxes. Like it really does. It's not a trade that's flashy. It's not a trade that, like Arjun was talking about, that's going to like push your chips in further for this season. It's definitely more of like a long-term solution at a position of need. And it's a flyer, but it's a flyer that I think if you hit on it, maybe not with this coaching staff, maybe next coaching staff, maybe it is this coaching staff, I don't really know. But if you hit and you get him back to what people thought he could be coming out of the draft, then the upside is a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, if this were a discussion before the season started, I think it'd be even more on board. I think a lot of fans would be more on board because we all believed in the defensive back development that was going on with this team. I mean, looking at last year, Zont taking a step forward, Michael Davis taking a big step forward. If you'd watch training camp, Dean Leonard looked amazing. Jaw Taylor, in theory, we thought was playing better or going to be playing better or stepping up. Hasn't quite worked out. But overall, he felt really good. Alohi Gilman was looking great. I mean, everyone was taking a step forward. Yeah. And so it'd almost be like a no-brainer. Now, I still am certainly down for it, but I'm less enthusiastic about his chances of really developing over here. But still, he fits a physical profile. He's an athletic corner. Brett Coleman suggested that, if the Chargers are playing these DBs so far off, it's potentially because they don't believe that these guys can move and run and turn with a lot of these guys, and they're just worried that these corners that they have basically aren't athletic enough. I don't think that's the case with Michael Davis, although he's not quite been the same this year. KY Elam is very athletic. That is something he can definitely do. I have not paid attention to his time with the Bills really at all, outside of that first season where like the 7th round pick was outplaying him or something. That's the extent of my coverage and knowledge of what KY Elam has been doing. Granted, he also hasn't been playing that much, but yeah. I think the Chargers could give it a go. I think they should give it a go. Whether they do or not, who knows?
Yeah. He was a healthy scratch on Thursday night. That's kind of where he's at in his time with the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills, they don't have Tre'Davious White. They're playing, I forget his first name, but his last name is Benford, who's literally like wearing number 47 for this team. Like that's
Josh Harris's number. Yeah.
Yeah. He's wearing number 47 as a starting outside corner. And he's playing really, really well. So, the Bills do this thing where you have to like earn your time, right? And if you don't earn it, then they're not going to play you. And the guys behind him have earned more playing time. So it's not a stretch to me that the Bills would obviously trade him. Obviously, there's a lot of buzz coming out for this very reason. Uh, they just signed Josh Norman and played Josh Norman over KY Elam. So I get it. Like it's not like he's a star. It's just a chance on a long-term investment hitting, right? And I think that's why it makes sense. And listen, like if you were for the Chase Claypool trade, and I know there was a lot of people who wanted that trade out there, I think you should be in favor of this trade because to me, it's the same kind of thing. Obviously, Chase Claypool had like an amazing rookie season, but what was Chase Claypool in Chicago? A clear locker room distraction, somebody who had very clear effort issues, which have carried over to Miami. But it was like, okay, he's an athletic freak, former first round pick. Like the Chargers need a receiver. Let's take a chance and let's see what happens. And to me, it's the same logic with KY Elam. So definitely wanted to talk about it. There were, like I said, a lot of pre-draft connections between the Chargers and KY Elam. I was a fan of his. I don't know. I can't remember where you had him, but pre-draft wise, like I think it just tracks that they would be interested in him, whether or not they are willing to throw a 4th round pick or 5th round pick or whatever the cost is at the Buffalo Bills, then we'll see. But I don't think the Bills would have an issue trading him to the Chargers because it's like the Chargers are 2-4. Like it's not like they're trading him to the Chiefs. Like,
sure,
you know, the Chargers are not really a threat to the Bills right now.
Yeah, the only hangup would be that they do face the Bills later on this season. But again, if they're not playing him, the Chargers also might not be playing him either this year. Again, it is kind of a future thing. I don't know that KY Elam walks in and is suddenly starting on this team, barring injuries. I think the Bills would be okay with that risk. I wouldn't mind it if Jaw Taylor either goes down or continues to have a rough start to the season, or continues that rough start to the season. You know, who slides inside if Jaw Taylor gets hurt, doesn't work out? It's Asante Samuel Jr. And now it's Dean Leonard on the outside. Now, I like Dean Leonard a lot. I would love to see him play in almost like a parallel universe. I'd love to see him give it a go, but he's coming off of injury. Haven't seen him play a lot. Not that KY Elam is going to be a whole lot better, but he's got talent. You would just feel a lot better about your outside depth in that case.
Yeah. And long-term asset, I think for me is the key thing there. All right. Let's get to this game. We always talk about the injuries heading into each game on this Saturday show. The big one of the week was obviously Josh Palmer and his status heading into this one. He did not practice on Wednesday or Thursday. He was a limited participant in practice yesterday. He officially is dealing with a knee injury, and he is questionable for this game. My understanding from the press conferences and everything is that he's basically going to give it a pregame workout and see where he's at. If he misses this game, the Chargers receiver core is in a tough spot. We'll see what happens there with the rookies that they don't really throw the ball to very often. But Tyler, what are your thoughts on Josh Palmer's injury status heading into this one?
It's such a bummer because it's been the one thing that's really been holding him back from a truly successful season in any kind of role. You know, the concussions, the knee, the ankle, whatever. He's always had kind of one nagging thing. I'm glad he was moved to questionable. I'm glad there was at least some progress here. I don't know. I think he'll maybe play in a limited capacity, regardless the ball, the football moves through Keenan Allen. But like the question really to me is Quenton Johnson. Yes, there's a Josh Palmer injury here, but my question is really about the other two guys. And I'm not entirely certain that Darius Davis just doesn't get more targets or a bigger role in this game. Because every time he touches the football, it's been pretty good. Now, can you do that 10 times a game? Probably not, but they tried it 4 times last game, I think, and it was pretty effective. At least 2 rushes, 1 screen, and then maybe another one. There was another target in there where he didn't sit for something.
The screen, and then that target where he kind of ran too far, and I think was supposed to stop like 4 or 5 yards earlier.
Yeah, right. So I think this is an opportunity for the Chargers to maybe do what EJ Snyder was talking about, which is maybe not by a significant amount. We don't need to flip to the other extreme here, but just lower the ADOT and give Quenton Johnson manufactured touches and just find some of the plays that work. I think Palmer's been great and helped with the ADOT increasing and pushing the ball down the field. And we've seen that in several games so far this year, back-to-back-to-back games, really. But I think the Chargers, like EJ said, need to find what Justin Herbert can hit consistently, manufacture some touches for Quenton Johnston. Have we been saying that for a while? Sure. So to me, like people are asking in the chat, are we kind of over it at this point? Are we still pushing the QJ breakout game? Yeah, I guess this is kind of the secondary you want to try it with. Get yourself. Now it's going to go backwards when you face the Jets and Sauce Gardner the next week, but
yeah,
give it a go. My other question too is what Armand mentioned here is Jaylen Guyton. So he's officially questionable, but he's been a full go all week.
Jaylen Guyton was limited on Wednesday, full Thursday, full Friday. Same thing with Otito Ogbonia, I think. Yes, same thing for both of them.
So we're gonna find out.
We should find out today.
Yeah, a little later today, probably because it's a Sunday game.
Yeah. So they have to. Actually, since it's Sunday night, it might be a little bit differently. Actually, but theoretically, usually around like 12:31, we hear about like elevations and things like that. So we'll see.
Yeah, Jaylen Guyton is a big one to watch here too. Just the fact that if and we all keep finding some way to explain what's happening with Quenton Johnston. Partially, it's the usage working him down the field to open up things for everybody else. If Guyton is back, you don't have to use Quenton Johnston in that role as much. So that's kind of an X factor here.
Yeah, it is. And I think obviously you feel better about Josh Palmer being a little bit injured if Jaylen Guyton can give it a go. A banged up Josh Palmer, probably isolated against Jalen Johnson, very fittingly, former Utah Ute, is probably not the matchup you want to attack this week. Granted, Palmer did see a lot of L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie each last week, and he had the best game of his career. So I think, like you mentioned, it's a shame that Palmer has been injured because he's really starting to come into his own. He's been awesome for this team. Probably the best story of the last 2 weeks for this team, alongside Tuli Tuipulotu. So that's unfortunate. We'll see how that one goes. But like I said, most likely going to give it a chance and is a true game time decision. Alohi Gilman, I guess I should mention Gerald Everett as well. Sounds like he is probably going to play. He was DNP limited and then full. So that's good news there. This tight end room would be in a rough shape if Gerald Everett were not able to play, but it does sound like he's going to make it out there on Sunday night. Alohi Gilman potentially tracking for his return. He was limited on Wednesday and Thursday, and then a full participant yesterday for the first time since the injury. He's dealing with a heel injury, officially questionable. To me, this is kind of another X factor because I went back and I watched this Chicago Bears tape against the Raiders, and I've never, ever, ever seen anything like it from an NFL team before. I've never seen that many jet sweeps before. I've never seen that many screens before, check downs. Everything is like short, perimeter based, and the Chargers are going to need their safeties in particular to play well in this game. That was the biggest issue from the Raiders, in my opinion, is that Epps and Trayvon Merrick took themselves out of angles, took themselves out of plays, and just completely broke contain several times, missed tackles. Granted, Deontay Foreman ran both of them over 3 or 4 times. But safety play was a huge issue for the Raiders. And, Dean Marlowe, I think has been really good for this team. Derwin James has been solid, but not super impactful. So if you can presumably have your 3 best safeties all on the field together for the first time, I think that helps. And Alohi in particular, we've seen his tendency to, cause a fumble here and there, create an interception. It just feels like this defense does need kind of a spark plug right now. And maybe Alohi is that player. So I think Alohi playing is a very underrated X factor for this week.
Yeah, he's turned into a playmaker this season when he was healthy, but he always, like you said, there was just something that would happen around Alohi Gilman, either because of him or luck or whatever, where the football just ends up with him or he forces the turnover. And the Chargers could definitely use that. It is strange to think that Alohi Gilman is the multiplier, the spark for this defense. But again, he's kind of earned the right. He's been pretty good for them. So that'd be great. I hope he plays in some capacity just so we can ramp up for the Zach Wilson game, who I think is really bad. And prone to giving things away. And so Alohi Gilman, ramping up in this game and then getting to play more in full that game would be awesome, because I think that's how the Chargers win that game, is Zach Wilson turns into, say 2021. No. What was the year that he played the Pac-12 and got destroyed?
Oh, that would have been 2019.
Oh, well, I'm way off. That year,
I
think that's what'll happen. That game, didn't play so hot against some Utah team and UCLA or USC or literally any of the ranked teams that year.
Yeah, that was rough. 2020 was the COVID year, and the Pac-12 obviously canceled their games, and so BYU ended up playing like KFC State and like all this like JV schedule, and that's what led to Zach Wilson getting drafted. But that's another story for another day. I do want to point this out. Laos Bruin, aren't the Chargers one of the worst screen defenses? They are. Arjun had a graph about that this week. The Chargers are allowing explosive plays off of screens at a very, very alarmingly high rate, among other things that they are allowing at a very alarmingly high rate on defense right now. I think not having Alohi out there has been an issue with that, and also just the linebacker play being hyper aggressive with play action is a problem with that. The Chiefs ran that play to Jerick McKinnon where he scored, and then it got called back. I don't know if you remember that. And both Kenneth Murray and Eric Kendricks just completely overflowed to the football on a play action fake, and we're not even close to being in contention for making a tackle on that play. And then by the time they realized what was happening, there was already the wall of Chiefs blockers, and I think Jerick McKinnon had 20 yards of green grass before he even had to make a cut or do anything like that. Thankfully, the play got called back, but that pass would have made this Charger stat much worse than it already is. Very bad.
Do you remember what the stat was? I know they're giving up 4.8 explosive passing plays per game. I'm sure 2 or 3 of them are at least the screens, but yeah, I can only imagine they're not great.
Yeah, it's a tough watch, and the Bears are very good at screens, so it's kind of one of their strengths right now. And they ran so many against the Raiders, so many. I've never seen that many screens in my life before. All right, Tyler, any other thoughts about any injuries or anything like that?
No, I just hope Jaylen Guyton and Otto Bonney are both, ready to give it some sort of go this game and kind of work back to the season.
Yeah. Will be a lot of fun to see both of those guys out. Obviously, both of them have had an extensive injury recovery process. Obviously Otto recovering from a torn patella tendon, and then Jaylen Guyton having the torn ACL, which very, very long recovery for him from that. So hopefully they're okay. Hopefully they're able to give it a go. Just for what it's worth, if they don't play next week, the Chargers would have to put them on season-ending injured reserve. You have that 21-day window, and if you don't activate them after that 21 days is up, then the players have to go on to injured reserve permanently for the rest of the season. So I do expect we'll see both of them, if not this week, next week. Otherwise, they just don't have a choice. Okay, before we get into our game picks of the week, we have our prize picks of the week. We appreciate Prize Picks for being such a great and wonderful sponsor of the show. They are super easy to use. It's a daily fantasy app where it's just you against the numbers. They have great specials every now and then. I saw this week they had a nice LeBron special for if you're an NBA fan. They have some college football stuff, obviously, and NFL stuff. So we're going to get into some of our Chargers prize picks of the week. But this does really help support the show. So if you guys go to prizepicks.com/guilty, use the code guilty at checkout, you'll get a deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. Like I said, it does really help support the show. And you yourself can also go make some money. So highly encourage you guys to go check it out. Tyler, what are your specific Chargers picks of the week?
So they have a lot of defensive players for the Chargers this week. One is Kenneth Murray at 6.5 tackles plus assists this week. I think for a Bears team that literally is going to do everything in front of Kenneth Murray, him going sideline to sideline, the way they run the football, the screens. I think there's just so many opportunities, such a high volume of opportunities. Really, they have a line for they have a more or less for Kenneth Murray, Derwin James, and Eric Kendricks. I think you could go with any of them. I'm going with Kenneth Murray because I think he's been the most productive for the Chargers this season. So I'll go with Kenneth Murray, more than 6.5 tackles. I have Cameron Dicker at more than 1.5 field goals made. I think that the offense will move. I don't really have an issue projecting the Chargers offense, at least in the passing game, to do well this week. The Bears don't strike me as a team you need to go for it on fourth down against. If it comes down to that, the Chargers are in serious issue this game. I think the Chargers will be fine on offense this week. I'm not saying they'll score 30, but I think you can get 2 field goals out of it and just keep the points. Accumulating quickly would be great, but slowly would be fine. You can kick field goals against the Bears and win, and I think the Chargers will do that this week. So those two I really like. And then if you want to do a fun little special that they have Bo Nix against Utah, and then Justin Herbert, of course, against Chicago at 3.5 passing touchdowns. I'll take the more there. 2-2, 1-3, however you get it. It's at 3.5 touchdowns. So I'll go more. Bo Nix versus Utah, Justin Herbert versus the Bears. I think you can get 4 passing touchdowns out of those guys.
I think that's a fun one. I think most of that will come from Justin Herbert. But I think, like I said, the offense will get you there. Tyler, do you know what your mom is picking this week?
No, I don't. I actually don't know if she has done anything this week, but I know it's a random 3 kickers from different games. I know last week she did the Mahomes over, the Herbert under, and something else, and she was right. So it's her fault. Yeah. So I think this game she'll take some of the Chargers overs, or the mores, excuse me, and the Eagles mores. So
yeah, I think for me, Justin Herbert, I think this is a get right game for the offense. I share a lot of the concerns about the defense, but I think the problems or struggles with the offense are a tad overblown right now on social media. I was listening to several shows this week, the Athletic Football Show, the Ringer Show, and one of the things that they both talked about is that scoring just in general is down across the league, like at a pretty high rate. And the 2 biggest reasons are lack of explosive plays and red zone touchdown inefficiency. And those are 2 areas where the Chargers are ranking very highly in right now. They are 6th in the league in red zone touchdown percentage. If you look at total explosive plays generated, they're kind of, I think they're like 11th. But if you highlight specifically explosive pass plays generated per game, the Chargers are 3rd in that regard, trailing only the Miami Dolphins and the Minnesota Vikings. They're right neck and neck with the Rams right now. So I think that the Chargers offense is pretty close to like figuring this out post Corey, post Mike. I really trust what Kellen Moore is doing from a schematic standpoint, from a game plan standpoint, and they're generating explosive passes. They're scoring in the red zone. So I think the offense has a really good week, and I think specifically Justin Herbert gets back on track after I thought he was okay against the Chiefs. I do think he was bad against the Cowboys. So I think Justin Herbert gets back on track. His line is 265.5. I think you take the more there. And then the other one I like from a Bears perspective is Deontay Foreman rushing attempts. That's at 11 right now. Roschon Johnson is coming back. So I understand if there's a little bit, skepticism there. But the Chicago Bears lead the league in rushing attempts over the last month of the season by like 7 attempts per game. Like they're going to want to run the football. Last week against the Raiders, Deontay Foreman had 18 rushing attempts, and Darrington Evans, their backup, had 14 rushing attempts. So I do expect Deontay Foreman to get the football, even with Roschon Johnson coming back from his injury. So Justin Herbert over more passing yards, and Deontay Foreman more rushing attempts are my 2 plays of the week.
Yeah, love that for Foreman. Absolutely. Another one, if we're talking Bears, I tempted to take any Bears more in this game when it comes to receiving options. But Darnell Mooney, it's tough because it's not like they've shown a rapport, and that Mooney is a high volume, high target, high receiving yards guy. But Darnell Mooney is the guy that spends the most time in the slot for the Bears, at about almost like 70%. Yeah. And I think if you're targeting anybody in the secondary right now, it is Jaw Taylor, who hasn't been great. So 27.5 receiving yards, that is, frankly, that could just be 1 or 2 plays, and that's sort of it. But you're going against a corner who's been struggling. So I would say Darnell Mooney more than 27.5 receiving yards is one to keep an eye on for sure. Foreman was the other one that does it say 11 for you?
Yeah, 11. It says 11 rushing attempts for me.
Oh, okay. It was 11.5 like 2 hours ago. So
Oh,
interesting.
either way, if it's 11.5, I'm still taking the over or the more.
It's
Excuse me.
it's still 12 is still the more. Yeah.
Yeah. DJ Moore certainly interesting there as well. If the Chargers are going to play off coverage again this week, I think DJ Moore probably has a good game.
Can we actually talk about that real quick? Like, what do you think they're actually going to do this week?
I think they're going to play the same approach. I do. I think that this coaching staff does not like they are terrified of getting beat over the top. And some of that I think is a little ridiculous, especially against these teams where they clearly want to yards after catch you to death. So until the Chargers come out and say, "Hey, like we're gonna press and be physical," like I can't confidently say that it's gonna change.
I agree. I was just hoping for something different. I was hoping you'd give me some sort of hope here, but no, I 100% agree. So you've got a team 2.5 yards a dot, two and a
Yeah,
half yards. I mean, and
yeah,
they were like, I think some of them were complicated, some very good outbreaking route sort of stuff from Badgett, but
yeah,
yeah, we'll see.
yeah. It's rough right now. I do think I think the safeties will play well enough to like
Mhm.
not have it be as big of an issue. And obviously the Bears do not have Patrick Mahomes. So it I think the defense will be okay. Like I think the run defense is really the focus this week. Whereas like the Chiefs very clearly wanted to like air it out. Like they
Mhm.
figured out pretty early, like, hey, we can't really run the football on these guys. Like, let's just start airing it out. And I think this is the Bears want to run the football. Like they are going to stick to that.
Mhm.
So I think the defense will be okay this week. It's not going to be as noticeable, but we'll still like it'll be like a 3rd and 4, and the Chargers corners will be 14 yards off the football.
Cool. Well, at least it'll be on prime time. That won't draw any national attention whatsoever.
No, certainly not. All right, let's get to our league-wide picks here. We love doing this. Obviously, we'll include the Charger scores here. Just kind of rounding it off. If you can scroll to the right a little bit for me, Tyler.
Yeah, let me just zoom out here.
Okay. Arjun is 15-12. Alex Katzen is 11-6. Alex Insdorf 18-9. He got a Chargers pick right last week, so had a good week. Tyler also 15-12, and I am also 15-12. So the race to catch Alex is a 3-way tie right now. So Arjun has his favorite of the week as the Baltimore Ravens over the Arizona Cardinals. Lots of big lines this week. There's a bunch of teams favored by a touchdown or more. His underdog, he has the Bengals over the 49ers. He's a big believer in Joe Shiesty season, I guess,
Wow,
as
Arjun.
he likes to say. I don't know about Brock Purdy's status. I think he might be still in concussion protocol, but we'll see there. He has the Cowboys over the Rams as his either or, and then he actually has the Bears winning this game 24-21. That would be a train wreck there. Alex Katzen has the Jaguars over the Steelers. He has the Colts over the New Orleans Saints, the Houston Texans over the Carolina Panthers. He's the Chargers winning 31-17. Alex Insdorf has the Eagles over the Commanders. I feel like that's always a pretty close game, but we'll see how that one goes. Underdog, he has the Giants led by Tyrod Taylor over the Jets. Let's go Tyrod. And he has the Chiefs over the Broncos. I think I just saw that there's going to be like 8 inches of snow in that game. So that would have been nice to know before I made my pick, and I think Alex probably feels the same way. He has the Chargers winning 30-20. So both Alexes have the Chargers winning by 2 scores. Tyler, let's what are your picks and what do you have the Chargers score as?
Yeah, so I have the Dolphins beating the New England Patriots. I have the Indianapolis Colts upsetting the New Orleans Saints. Saints are a team that can be beat, and frankly, I was impressed with what the Colts did last week with Gardner Minshew against the
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns. Who would have thought that that would be the offense and the quarterback to almost take down the Browns and their defense? Then I had the Detroit Lions over the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders got beaten pretty bad by the Bears. I think the Lions are, a little better than the Bears. So I'm going to say that just a little bit. Yeah. They will throw it further than 2.5 yards, a dot. So, or maybe that's how you beat the Raiders. I don't know. So I have Detroit beating the Raiders. For me, I'm going to pick a win. I looked at this earlier and I thought Arjun just had picked that score with the Chargers win. I didn't see that he picked a Chargers loss. There is a part of me that is very concerned about this game and the way the defense is played. I thought I was going to be agreeing with him, but I didn't realize he picked the Bears. I have the same score. I think there's an aspect, one of two things. I think there's an aspect where the defense just flat out gives up 3 touchdowns and they have to hold things off in the second half, kind of like they have been. Or the Chargers are kind of more comfortably winning this game than the score would indicate, and then the Bears score something last minute or whatever. So I don't trust the Chargers defense to do anything less than 21 points. So I will go Chargers win 24-21. And thank you, Arjun, for picking the Bears to win, because I believe Steven will be picking the Chargers to win, but we'll see.
Yes, I am picking the Chargers to win, and that keeps it from being a clean sweep. So I agree about the defense. I do think that the defense is going to continue to struggle because what the Bears are doing really, really well right now is motion and, just being physical and stretching you out horizontally. And that's a lot of what the Chargers linebackers struggle with. So that was a key issue also against the Las Vegas Raiders, or for the Las Vegas Raiders, I should say. So this is a really important game for Kenneth Murray to show that he can stay on his P's and Q's and stay on his assignments and be able to read and react at a high level. If he and the safeties can play well, then I think the Chargers defense can hold up. Like, it's really that simple for me. The Bears offensive line, they block the run very well, but they're allowing pressures at a pretty high rate. So I do think that if the Chargers could get out to an early lead, force the Bears out of their game script, then the Chargers pass rush can be able to tee off and get some pressure on Tyson Bagent and things like that. But if this stays like a neutral script, or if the Bears are still kind of close, and they can continue to run the football, continue to screen game, all these things, then I think the defense can be in a bit of a tough spot. So I think the offense will be fine. I really expect kind of a breakout performance from the offense, but I don't trust this defense to win by 2 touchdowns. Like, I can't get there right now. So I am going to say that the Chargers win, and I'm going to say 27-20. Oops, not 270. Hello, 27-20. So this is strictly a defensive thing for me. The Chargers are averaging 24 points per game. I would be stunned if this number is not at least 27 this week, personally, because I think this is a get-right game for the offense.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's sticking out in my mind, and maybe Arjun sort of feels this way with the loss, is that EJ Snyder pointed out perfectly where the Bears just rallied behind Bagent and they played.
Yes, it showed on tape all the way.
Like, they were, because I watched the game live with my dad, and they just could not stop picking up yards after contact. And they talked about, or EJ talked about how Darnell Wright had like a hurt, injured arm, but they were working together and trying to like move Max Crosby, and they were physical, and they were inspired and generally mistake free. So there's an aspect of this where there's kind of an emotional, hey, us against the world, let's do it for this guy thing that's going on with the Bears right now. And they're going to fight. And I think that the Chargers fans, and maybe even myself, wrote off the Bears after that Chiefs loss because that was awful. But the Bears, with their health, and now we'll see with Bagent here, have really started to become a better rushing attack, a better defense. I think they're like the 7th defense over the last 3 weeks, which, sure, anyone in the comments can say, well, it's because they played Brian Hoyer and they played Kirk Cousins, but so did the Chargers, and that doesn't always work out. So it doesn't mean that's always a good defensive day for you. So
yeah,
there's an aspect of this where the Bears get some sort of emotional edge here.
Sure.
Let's try. Thankfully, I think Bears fans don't travel well. I don't know. It's not exactly like it's a heyday Bears team to go watch. I don't know how much money you're spending to travel from Chicago to LA to watch 2.5 yard ADOT, but who knows? Maybe it's fireworks because of this defense. So I just, we'll see. I think this Bears team is going to be playing very inspired, and I hope the Chargers have their emotional edge too.
For what it's worth, the Bears fans did take over Allegiant Stadium last year. That was early on in the season, but they had a really nice showing in Las Vegas. That was, obviously Justin Fields, a team I feel like was maybe a little bit more competitive. But yeah, man, this Bears offense rallied around Tyson Bagent for sure. I thought that generally speaking, they had a really, really smart game plan against Max Crosby. It was a lot of jet sweeps and screens the opposite direction of him. And basically any true like drop back, they had a chip ready for him. They had a double team ready for him. Like they were really, really smart against him. He still had 5 pressures and a sack and then another quarterback hit. Like he still played well because he's Max Crosby. But I thought they were really smart about it. This is one thing that maybe is an underrated storyline here. Khalil Mack did play for the Bears. The Bears did trade him away. This might be a special Khalil Mack game. I don't think it'll be 6 sacks, but I think we have a pattern from Khalil Mack of what he thinks about his former teams. So I do expect Khalil Mack to have a good game this week. And I talked about needing a spark, right? Maybe that's a Alohi Gilman. Maybe that's a Khalil Mack great revenge game again against his other former team.
Awesome. Let's see. How many snaps did Khalil Mack play last game? Because I feel like someone had to suffer the snap count. Was that more of a Thule thing, or?
It was more of a Thule thing.
Okay, gotcha. Just curious. Yeah, so he went from, and then Mack went from about 55 plus on the season to 45. So
yeah, I think everybody kind of took a step back. Joey Bosa is obviously off the injury report this week. He mentioned that he expects an increased workload as well. So the toe must be feeling good for him. I think that did show up on tape that I watched. Joey caught a lot of flack on Sunday for during the game, but I thought like on film, it was his best game of the season so far. I thought he had some really clean wins against Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor. I thought he defended the run well. Obviously he didn't get a sack, but he had a great quarterback hit on Patrick Mahomes. So I think we're seeing Joey get healthier, and I think that's starting to show up on tape.
Good to hear. It felt very 50-50 on Joey, where I felt like half the fans saw the impact during the game, even though it wasn't like a sack, and the other half were, drawing him on milk cartons, wondering where he was. So I felt it was more of the former.
Yeah, so it was basically, looking at the snap counts, it was basically a 3-way split between the 3 of them. Khalil had 45 total snaps. Joey had 40, and then Thule had 39. So I hope that's kind of what we see going forward. And I would love to see them particularly be on the field together more often going forward as well. Arjun tweeting out his most disruptive pass rushing quartets, and the Chargers quartet of the 3 edge rushers and Morgan Fox is in the top 5, but they've only been on the field together for 12 total plays this season. So I would love to see that quad going forward on the field more often for the Chargers. All right. We'll get to some questions here. I have to also tell you guys, obviously, about Little Caesars and Ticketmaster, our 2 other sponsors of the season. Obviously, pizza and football go together, just like Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert on game day. You're able to use the Pizza Portal pickup and get your hands on some tasty slices. You can also order delivery. So we strongly encourage you to make Little Caesars the national sponsor of the NFL and the Los Angeles Chargers a part of your game day experience. And then Ticketmaster, obviously the best and easiest way to get access to Chargers tickets. Speaking of Chargers tickets, we have a giveaway going up on our Twitter page for 2 tickets to tomorrow's game. Instructions there are on our Twitter page, so please go check that out. You'll be able to use Ticketmaster, scan in with the wallet, and able to just use Ticketmaster for an easy entrance to game day. So appreciate Little Caesars and Ticketmaster for sponsoring the show.
Yep, got 2 tickets to Section 231 primetime game. Honestly, this is as good as a game as you're going to feel going to for the Chargers to win. So I would highly recommend entering in that giveaway, because after this, not entirely sure if you want to go see the Ravens game or the Bills game or the Chiefs game, or even the Detroit Lions game. So I think this is a good one to go enter in on.
Yeah, I was hoping that this game would get flexed out of primetime, and I probably would have gone if it had. So it didn't. I'm not able to go to primetime games because I have to work the next Monday, and it's just kind of a trek out. So it is what it is. All right, Tyler, we'll get to some of these questions here. We have a super chat from Reality Check. Appreciate him for jumping in here and getting us started. He says, what is the problem with our 2-minute offense? Too much 5 wide spread considering the protection issues? And why doesn't Herbert scramble and avoid blitz pressure in 2 minutes? He just eats sacks. What are your thoughts here?
I'd have to see how many timeouts maybe they had in the situations. But Herbert's an interesting I don't think he's a good scrambler. I think he's good in the pocket, and I think he's a good runner. I don't know how to like Patrick Mahomes scrambling is different. You know what I mean? Like the way that he scrambles and moves more
Yeah,
so laterally, I think is
absolutely.
very, very different. I think Herbert is just not a great scrambler, which is a surprise. Again, a good runner, not a scrambler, if that kind of makes sense. Too much 5 wide considering the protection issues. Maybe it's tough because there's not one thing I could even sit here and tell you that is the issue. It's, maybe it's an over reliance on Keenan. Maybe it's not going to Quenton Johnston. I think they could lean on Austin Eckler a bit more in these situations if it came down to it. They haven't.
Yeah.
And I don't recall the last time they really just, not that a check down screen is the greatest thing to do all the time, but it is safe. And if Eckler is now healthy, and I think he is, you can rely on that a bit more. So I would just say, maybe lean on Eckler a bit more in these situations or any other pass catching back. You don't have to get everything back. I don't recall the last time Herbert had only like 45 seconds to get everything done, or like 30 seconds. They had to get it all in one play. I feel like you could chip away a bit more before taking the risky throws.
Yeah, I think the Miami game was the shortest amount of time they had in like a gotta have it situation. But I think the 5-man routes is potentially an issue. I think, like you mentioned, the shorter passes, like those need to increase. Like I think um Tony Romo against the Chiefs kind of highlighted this. Like the most important thing in your 2-minute drives is that you get the ball going. Like it's not that you are creating explosive plays. It's not that you are going to score a touchdown. The most important thing is that you get the ball moving down the field, and then you can see what happens as you go. And I think that's just kind of more of the approach I would like to see in these situations. Like you mentioned, Austin Eckler. I feel like watching these 2-minute situations, it's a lot of like, let's go make a big play. Let's go win the game. Like, let's be aggressive. And I would like to see them take a step back and just get the ball moving down the field and have a little bit more rhythm in these situations. One thing that they are struggling with in these moments is the stunt protection. I've talked about this with Jamari Sawyer and Trey Pipkins. It feels like every single fourth quarter drive, the two of them have a stunt issue and they miss it, whether that was against Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons, or whether that was against man, I'm really blanking on names right now. Jaylen Phillips or Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, all these guys have made the Chargers pay on a stunt pickup. And so that's one way you can mitigate that is having more 6-man protections. You have your tight end chip somebody, or your running back stays in protection. So I think it's a bunch of issues, but I think first and foremost, I think they just need to focus more on moving the ball down the field first. And then once you get going, then you can try and hit some big plays. But I think it's like against the Titans, like they came out on the first play of overtime and it was like their go-to scissors route concept, and they're trying to hit Keenan like 15-20 yards down the field, and it's like you don't need to do that. Like just get going, get the drive started. So I think that's a good call moving forward.
Yep.
Ooh, apparently Brock Purdy cleared concussion protocol. Interesting. I think that means he's like the first player this season to clear concussion protocol in the same week. Interesting.
Get through some more questions and let's see another super chat. Bolt Lounge, goodness gracious, I haven't seen Bolt Lounge in here in forever. Hey, any chance we target Josh Oliver, or is that a staple for the Vikings now? Are the Vikings officially sellers, or do they feel like they're?
I feel like the Vikings could sell Daniil Hunter because he's like not in their long-term plans. Like I think that much is clear. But like there was talk previously, like they were, going to take calls on like Jordan Hicks and Harrison Smith and like basically like any key player. They just beat the 49ers and it like looks pretty good. That NFC 6 and 7 spots are pretty wide open. So I think like legitimate fire sale is probably off the table, but I still could see Daniil Hunter get moved because he's an expiring contract. He leads the league in sacks right now. So that one I can see. I would love Josh Oliver. He's a stud blocking tight end. He's definitely what the Chargers need. The Vikings just signed him to a 3-year deal, though. So I think that's probably off the table for any trade target.
Agree there.
Super chat just in from Christian Hernandez. What do you guys think about the coaches finally collaborating this week? And I guess he's not a fan of Mike Williams, which tough comment there, kind of considering he just had his ACL surgery. But coaching collaboration comment. What did you make of that?
I can't tell. I think I've even tweeted as much. I can't tell whether I shouldn't care or I should just be annoyed with the comment. Some people are saying, well, Eckler, he's just saying this because he didn't get his contract. I don't know. You keep hearing these things just keep being said, and it's just a compiling thing for me, maybe even just more than the individual comment. I'm sure we'll get a follow-up to this that said the comments were overblown, just like his I have no choice but to trust this regime or whatever comment that he had to follow up on last week. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this comment. I don't like that it came out. I don't like that it was said. And it just adds another log to the fire is what it feels like. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, Austin Eckler kind of talked about this all week long. He was on the Dan Le Batard show yesterday and was asked about it. I can just hear the frustration coming from Austin Eckler, and I get it. Like he knows his situation is probably predicated on the Chargers doing well, and he's also not producing. He's not being targeted right now. So I can understand why Austin Eckler is frustrated. The finally collaborating part, I disagree with. We were at training camp and I saw with my own eyes that Brendan Nugent was with the running back room, working on drills in training camp. So the way that he worded this, I do take an issue with because it's not an accurate representation. He tried to clarify later on in the quote that, they collaborate in the meeting room, but it's not always on the field. And it's like, yes, like when the running backs go off to do their position drills, the offensive line
Sure.
are on the opposite end of the field also doing position drills.
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly kind of take an issue with Austin Eckler with this thing. Like, to me, he's painting a very poor picture of the Chargers offensive coaching staff specifically. And to hear that the way that he worded this, I take an issue with, because I've seen with my own eyes that Brendan Nugent is very involved with the run game, with the pass protection plan, and he's a very collaborative coach. And so for him to say this week, I think it's an Austin Eckler issue for me. I think there are legitimate coaching gripes to be had, but talking about the offensive line coach finally collaborating with the running backs, that didn't sit well with me.
Yeah, and it's also a staff that I know it's not perfectly held together over the last few years, but it's a lot of the same faces, a lot of the same guys together. Yeah. So we don't hear about issues of collaboration beforehand, and then now they don't collaborate. Like, this is their third year for a lot of these guys outside of Kellen Moore. And I can't imagine Kellen Moore's like, just kidding, we're not going to work together on this. So,
hey, Brendan Nugent, fuck off and go hang out over there. That's not happening.
Listen, whatever makes the pass protection work. If that's what he has to say, fine.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of frustrations with the coaching staff. I get it. To me, like, singling out the offensive line coach for this, like, Brendan Nugent, like, the vast majority of his job is coordinating the run game. Like, that's what an offensive line coach does. Like, to try and single out that the offensive line coach is finally collaborating, to me was a little bush league by Mr. Austin Eckler. Just my 2 cents.
A lot of comments, not questions.
Did you have a bold prediction for this game, Tyler? Courtesy of Nimbusade.
So, I'm never doing a Gerald Everett, Travis Kelce stat line again. That doomed me in about 4 seconds.
Hey, Everett had a good game though.
He did. He actually had a solid game. Almost had a touchdown there. Unfortunately, got hurt. Bold predictions. Quenton Johnson has 3 catches.
Oof, I hate that. That's a bold prediction, but yeah, I can see it. Bold prediction. I'll say Joshua Kelly over 100 yards. I've loved watching Joshua Kelly on tape. I know he had the dud against the Vikings, but I think Joshua Kelly's having a really, really good season. And again, I wish we could highlight more stuff like that. But he's 13th right now in yards per contact after attempt among all running backs, and he's 13th in runs that have gone for 10 yards or more. So Joshua Kelly, I think we'll see that show up on Sunday night too.
There's the big touchdown is obviously the big run of the day, but I love the one where he bounced to the right and just outran the defense to the right sideline. I think he got like 8 yards or something, or 9 yards. Loved that. Like that's the healthy, good rushing Joshua Kelly that we were used to seeing early in the season.
Alex pointed out that Bajent has the Heineke gene. He totally does.
What does that mean?
Scrambles. It's just kind of like this. To me, it's just kind of like the scramble playmaking ability. I obviously did not watch Shephard tape, and I will never watch Shephard offensive tape. But there were a couple times where he like scrambled, created a nice play, ran for a first down, and like did like the first down sign, and like there were 3. Like he ran for a first down against the Raiders, and like Cole Kmet and Darnell Wright and Darnell Mooney like all ran up to him and like were hyping him up like he had just scored like a game-winning touchdown. It was like a 12-yard run at midfield. So he definitely has just kind of like that very like polarizing,
gotcha.
I'm gonna make some play with my legs kind of nature to him.
From Kiyoki Butler, do you guys feel comfortable beating the Jets if we only beat the Bears by 1 score?
I don't feel comfortable beating the Jets regardless of what happens on Sunday night.
That's kind of how I feel. I just want to escape this one with a win. I almost don't really care what the score is.
Yeah.
Would the Jets game be a potential Corey Lindsey return game?
Theoretically, if he's healthy, that would be the 5th game. He has to miss 4 games, which is this Sunday against the Bears. Theoretically, he could return. We have not gotten any updates though.
Yeah, as Ennison points out, the Jets just beat the Bills. Their defense is awesome, and Sauce Gardner's going to clear concussion protocol. He did, and I forget the other player. They're playing well. They have to go to New York, East Coast game. Robert Saleh has that defense playing pretty freaking well right now. Yeah, they've got a lot of talent on that defense, and I think there's an aspect of 2 defensive guys getting hired in the same cycle that is kind of in play here too.
Yeah, the Jets are so loaded at pass rusher that they're actively trying to trade Carl Lawson, who had like 60 pressures for them last year.
Jeez.
That defense is ridiculous. It's going to be very difficult for the Charger offense to get things going that game, especially without Corey, especially without Mike. Justin should theoretically be healthier, but that's kind of a game that like you win probably like 17-14. 16-13, and I like even against Zach Wilson, I don't have confidence that this defense can win that kind of game.
Yeah, well, the Chargers have given up consistently. Whoever the number 1 is, the receiver, 100-something yards every single game. Now, granted, it was more of a Travis Kelce tight end thing, but Garrett Wilson is awesome, and I don't know if the Chargers can hang with him at all. So, yeah, I don't feel great about that game. They would have okay if they destroy the Bears in this game. I'll feel better, obviously, but again, none of us picked that, and Arjun picked them to lose. So,
yeah, if tomorrow night is a game that the Chargers win like 30-14, like 3 scores, maybe I'll feel a little bit better. But I don't think that the Chargers win this game tomorrow like that, and I just think that the Jets defense is amazing, and they are great at the areas that the Chargers have struggled with, specifically like stunt pickup, specifically like defensive line depth, specifically like, you know, game plan management and like shutting down a wide receiver 1 and like what are your answers after that. So it's going to be a tough matchup for the offense. So if the Chargers are going to win, the defense has to like really pick up the slack that week. And I just, I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah.
And it's a away game. I feel like the Chargers have never really played well, like super well in New York for some reason. I don't know if I'm making that up or not, but maybe I'm associating like some of the previous playoff losses, but those were at home. I don't know. I just like, I can't really remember like a true standout game against a New York team.
They had to, well, yeah, I don't know about in New York, because obviously they beat the Giants pretty good, 2 years ago, but that was at home. I think the Jets were at SoFi, Herbert's rookie year, and that was an absolute Joe Flacco.
Yeah, Taylor Kemba had the pick
shootout.
6. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Giants and Jets were both at home. I think that's what Steven was referring to. Away, I don't remember even the last time they played. When was the last time they played the Giants away? Rivers?
Yeah, I know because Alex went to a Chargers Giants game in 2017, 2018, maybe. It was like a Hunter Henry game. It was after Odell got hurt. But either way, I don't know. I just think this is a very difficult matchup for the Chargers, and they're gonna have to figure out other ways to win besides the offense. And anytime we've seen that happen, it's not been good for this team.
Yep.
All right. Tyler, did you see any other questions that you wanted to hit on before we head out of here?
No, I think we've covered most of them. Some people are, oh, wait, here we go. Just kidding. Christian Hernandez, how awesome and fun is Darius Davis? So cool to have an explosive player like him. Yeah, it really is. I mean, the Chargers continue to justify that selection so much. Could you have waited longer for a return specialist? Sure. But specifically utilizing him in the offense that they have, awesome. Like it's been a really solid pick for them.
Yeah, and I think it was such a big need for them to find like a legitimate gadget player. That was never really what DeAndre Carter was going to give them. It was kind of a struggle. Andre Roberts wasn't really that guy. So Darius Davis having basically one explosive play every week is huge for this team. Last week he had technically 2, I believe. The jet sweep was technically a run, and so that counted for more than 10 yards, which counts as an explosive run. So it's a really good way for them to create some explosive opportunities. Obviously, against the Raiders, that's how they kind of got the game going, was with the Darius Davis screen. And those are concepts that I really enjoy watching from Kellen Moore. This week against the Chiefs, I thought he had a great job because it was like a play action fake to Eckler. And then initially it looked like he was going to he play action fake to the left, looked to the right, and then back to the left. And Eckler was like leaking out. And the weak side linebacker and the nickel corner both like really flew hardcore to Eckler. And then they came back to Darius Davis, hit him on it, and he had a great cutback lane, made a huge play out of it. So not huge, but it was like a 15, 18-yard gain, and that really got that drive going. So the screen game was a huge weakness under Joe Lombardi, and I think Kellen Moore is kind of rectifying that change. It's been a nice thing to see him get Darius Davis involved that way.
Yeah, it seems like he's been a beautiful tendency breaker for them too, or create a tendency that is broken the following week. Like he is a great, let's put this on film, change it up, and surprise the defense. So we'll be something completely different this week, I'm sure.
Yeah. There was a lot of freaking out about Kellen Moore's quote about Darius Davis and Quenton Johnson this week. He was specifically asked about gadget plays and how Darius Davis has earned that role. Just gadget plays. Like, I want to make it very clear that they were not talking about getting Darius Davis like starter reps over Quenton Johnston. Like, that's a very different conversation. Basically, when the Chargers get into like actual real offensive schemes, Darius Davis is not on the field. So again, Darius Davis is their gadget player, and that's basically all he is right now, which is great. Yeah. He's doing well in that role, and I expect that to continue going forward.
Yeah, I think it feels like he makes such a bigger impact or he's on the field more, but then you look at the snaps and it's like 10, 12.
Yeah.
Like it's but he makes
and they're almost all in the first half. He's very rarely playing in the second half.
Yes, which correlation to how they're playing?
Potentially. Yeah. So there's always context behind the quotes that come out that is missing.
Surprise.
All right, guys. That's going to do it for us today. We will be going live tomorrow night after the game is over. So we will be hopefully doing that after a nice get-right game for the offense. We'll see how that one goes. So stay tuned for that one. Should be shortly right after the game is over. Like I mentioned, we are giving away tickets to the game, so please go check that out on our Twitter page. If you have not yet signed up to do that, free tickets, love to give them away to somebody who hasn't been to a game before, hasn't been to a primetime game before, but it is random at the end of the day. So, Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
No.
That was a nice deep sigh.
I'm done. Let's just win this game, man.
All right, man. Appreciate Tyler for jumping on with me. Appreciate the guys for giving their picks and all that. I hope your college teams win, unless you are an Oregon fan. We are not friends this week, but it's okay. I love you regardless. So go Utes. It was fun to see them this morning. All right, guys. That's it. We'll see you tomorrow. As always, bolt up.